didn't foresee talking about this, but I saw something pretty startling. There's actually breaking news regarding this. It's not really what we're addressing because it broke shortly before the show, but it's worth mentioning, though, that the first lawsuit in this cataclysmic disaster has transpired now. Alec Baldwin, the producers of the film, the armorer, and the first assistant director are getting sued now by the film's gaffer over the fatal shooting that killed cinematographer Halyna Hutchins. The gaffer's name is Serge Svetnoy, and he filed a complaint of general negligence. So that is now breaking. That's the first of sure to be many lawsuits. We're not going to touch on that too much because that's not what we were prepared to discuss. I honestly think the lawsuit to me is not surprising. It's newsworthy, but it's not surprising. It was only a matter of time before that happened. This, on the other hand, is a totally different thing. And if this isn't a sign that this production should be shut down, I don't know what is.
No, I agree. It actually goes hand in hand, I think, with one another. It seems incidental, but maybe it could be if they fully investigate it and they find out all the details and they found out it was completely random. But all signs are pointing to no. This is part of a larger systemic thing of how this production was run, and it's a mess.
I mean, it's more drama on the still developing story. A lamp operator and pipe rigger on the set, his name was Jason Miller. He was working on tearing down the set in the production in lieu of the production being shut down after the death of Halyna Hutchins. And he was tearing down the production. He was bitten by a brown recluse spider. Now, I don't know too much about spiders. I know I don't like them. But a brown recluse spider is one of the more famous spiders because of the fact that it's venomous. And you can die from these spiders. Like, these spiders are vicious. These things bite. They're big. They're ugly. Oh. These are the reason. Like,
I pulled up a photo of it, and it's just like my arachnophobia.
No, don't do that.
It's going off the rails.
I'm not even watching the stream. I'm not even watching the stream, so I don't care. You could show a montage. I ain't watching it. I'll be cursed when I have to edit this. But anyway, poor Jason Miller, he's experienced necrosis, which is the rapid death of cells in a particular location in your body, in his arm. He's experienced necrosis in his arm and sepsis. And sepsis, essentially, that's one thing I actually knew what it was. I didn't know what necrosis was. But sepsis is when, like, a foreign organism enters your bloodstream, and then it kind of accelerates the process of organ failure or total limb failure as well. It's two things you do not want when you go to the doctor, believe me. But Miller has underwent multiple surgeries each day to stop the infection and to prevent amputation. And it was a concerning quote from one of the doctors who's been examining Miller throughout this. They say, "It will be a long road to recovery if the medical team is able to save his arm." So that's frightening. That's terrifying. That just goes to show you the power of these spiders too, and the venom that's in these things. And in addition to the article that we were reading, Sky News, I believe it was, Lane Looper, the camera operator who resigned the day before Hutchins was tragically shot by a prop gun at the hand of Alec Baldwin, he said that safety and welfare concerns for the crew prompted him to walk away. He added that as well. And he noted 2 accidental discharges of firearms and 1 of special effects explosives on the set days before Hutchins was ultimately killed. But I mean, Dom said it earlier. It's the desert. It's New Mexico. There's going to be creatures, scorpions, spiders, snakes even. There's going to be these random assortment of potentially dangerous creatures going to be lurking about. I'm sure there's way to prevent it and everything. But this doesn't help the optics. And this certainly doesn't help the idea that this movie's going to continue. I mean, it's of the least concern at this juncture. But it doesn't spell good fortune for an already tainted production that somebody died on set of, and the resounding effects are going to continue for the foreseeable future, at least until a comprehensive investigative report is released by the investigating officers and departments. Dom, we missed you last week, so I'm throwing it over to you. You get first word after me.
Yeah, I don't know the union rules on like pesticides or bug control or whatever. Tried doing a little bit of research. It's a little specific, but it feels like something that maybe you hire someone to watch out for if you know this is the kind of environment that you're shooting in. I don't know. In terms of culpability, we don't have as much information on that. It seems more like this is more believable in a sense that this could be a freak accident as opposed to the death of Hutchins, where like there's a gun with live rounds in it. But it's just really unfortunate. I would love to see IATSE's official take on this, or perhaps potentially maybe they did have it covered, or like the union was supposed to have it covered and they didn't, and maybe IATSE's also in trouble here. I don't know. We don't know the full story quite yet, but this sucks, man. This is a cursed movie, and at some point I'm going like, so are they just gonna not finish? They're just not gonna finish this movie, right? Because like this, how do you move on from this? Not just, of course, from the spider thing, but someone died. They do that with stunt performers. Stunt performers have died, and on set, and they still finish the movie and dedicated to them and stuff. But I wonder, because this is more of a, I don't want to say indie. It would be accurate to say indie. I don't know. The term indie it flips around with me, but it's not like a Deadpool 2, where it's like that is a big franchise, big cultural thing. People are really into that. However, someone did die. I believe it was a woman. She died on a motorcycle. She was a stunt woman, but of course they finished and completed that movie and released it. So, but we'll see about Rust. I don't know, dude. I don't know how you move on from that. It's a freaking mess. And real quick, because I kind of told Joe to pull this up, so I'll go back to the shooting real quick. Just real quick about the lawsuit. It is against not just the armorer and the first assistant director, but also the producers, one of which is Alec Baldwin, according to the lawsuit, and really any chance to show the fancy lawsuit papers, because I love doing that. But really, because the use of guns and live ammunition in motion pictures amounts to an inherently dangerous activity, the producers of Rust had a duty to hire persons trained and experienced in carefully overseeing the use of firearms and ammunition in the filming of the motion picture, yada, yada, yada. Next paragraph, notwithstanding their responsibilities, the industry standards, the fact that the screenplay for Rust contained violent scenes involving the use of firearms and ammo, blah, 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 their conduct proximately caused plaintiffs injuries. So in that specific, they were talking about the gaffer, whose name is Serge Svetnoy, but because that's what the lawsuit is specifically citing, less so Hutchins, but it's just a sign that Alec Baldwin, there was a lot of dumb takes of people blaming him at first because he pulled the trigger. Then everyone ran to his defense because, we don't know the full details yet, and this guy, it sounds like he could be, and it could be just a freak accident. But now we're going back to, as the details are finally emerging in full force. This is there's culpability here. This whole Rust incident, the shooting and the spider bite, is going to be a case study. They're going to teach us in university. They're going to teach us in OSHA classes. They're going to teach us in safety classes, up and down, especially in union
undoubtedly,
and film school. Like, there's going to be a class in film school called workplace safety or set safety, and this is going to be the introductory case to that class. This is going to be a textbook for the industry for decades to come. This whole thing is a mess, and honestly, the more details that come out of it, the longer we go along, and the more details come out, the worse it keeps getting. But the truth is coming out, and I think, say what you will, I'll finish up on this. Say what you will about the whole, we don't need guns in movie sets anymore. I don't know about that. Safety, of course, but I don't know about like just CGI all weapons. I think you're eliminating hundreds of union jobs Just off that
that's an
alone.
over. That sounds like an in the moment overreaction.
Yeah.
It always has. It always has.
I
That sounds like a way too hard overcorrect.
Yeah.
What I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah.
What it comes
Joe,
down to is just like you just needed somebody responsible on set to know what they were doing with dangerous equipment like this. It's like that with explosives when you're on a Michael Bay film. It should be like that for any other film. Honestly, treat every film that you work on with a gun, bombs, whatever it may be, like a Michael Bay film. Act like that thing's about to go off any second, and like if you don't do your job correctly, you're gonna die, or you'll kill somebody. Like to me, the whole news of this, I am also in agreement that this won't go on. This production is just gonna stop, and this movie will never probably come out. It's funny that it's a Western. We're talking about Westerns too, but yeah, it's I don't think we'll ever get to see this movie. Some people are also saying, is Alec Baldwin ever going to get work again? Yeah, of course he is, but like this will always be a controversy that just surrounds him and everything. I wouldn't be surprised if this is like a 60 minutes interview at some point with Alec Baldwin or something. Like he'll be on some talk show being interviewed about the aftermath of all this. But again, I mean, in retrospect, when we look at this story, think about what we were talking about like 4 or 5 weeks ago. We were talking about Yahtzee and everything they were bringing up on why they were going on strike. And then they settled it. And all of a sudden, now we have this movie that everybody now is on board with. What do you mean there weren't safety precautions and everything? It's like, okay, so now when the next time Yahtzee goes on strike, I better not go on social media and see people being like, why are they complaining about them and having to to work in these conditions? I bet it's not that bad. You're on a movie set and everything. Like, you get to work with actors.
You should be lucky.
Like, why you got to live my Marvel films? Like, it's just like, now we see why it's important to have this stuff, because somebody died. Somebody might lose an arm here. And don't act like you weren't invested, because if you were on social media, and if you're one of those people that never gets off social media, you were invested in this story in some sort of way. Don't lie to yourself.
The story here isn't guns. The story here isn't really Alec Baldwin. He's the face of it, but that's surface level. The real story here is negligence, greed, rush
cutting
production,
corners,
rush deadline, cutting corners, workplace safety. And how unions have it's the same shit that our unions have been arguing for since literally the Industrial Revolution. So it's a tale as old as time. And I will say I cannot wait for the documentaries and movies about the production of this movie. They're going to come out in the years later.
That's next.
That will
That's
be the
coming to
Sleepless
Netflix
reunion.
next year.
Yeah, exactly. Knowing Netflix, knowing Netflix, that documentary is going to come out in January. So whatever. But yeah, dude, this is honestly, I would not be surprised if we talk about it at least one more time before the end of the year. This is the story.
And I mean, it couldn't have been more, I don't want to use the word serendipitous, but it couldn't have been more coincidental or hand in hand that we talked for 2 weeks back to back about the Yahtzee strike. We talked about that at length, and then we went into, and then this happened. And that was the first thing that came to mind, honestly. And Dom, you're really the one who brought, I think, the Yahtzee strike to both of our attention. And then when I was doing the research for the show then and stuff, it didn't take me long when I was making notes when we first addressed the Rust incident, that like these two things are linked. They're not hand in hand. Yahtzee couldn't have foresaw what took place on Rust, but it's part of that.
Yeah.
It's part of that. I mean, you want a case study in why Yahtzee was going to strike. That was exactly what it was, too. And then it only is more fitting that you have all these crew members. You had a walkout, for Christ's sake. You had the walkout, and then you have these crew members coming out talking about the gross negligence that took place on set. And now you got the first of what is sure to be many lawsuits and this one filed by Serge Svetnoy.